that was their religion, and almost everybody, had their religion or the religion they were brought up in. And several years ago, I don't know how long ago, that box was deleted. But now, almost every Jewish person is noted as being a Jew or coming from a Jewish background, or they'll say their mother or their father was a Jew, and that will be documented in Jewish people's bio. But for some reason, it's not mentioned for. It's only a pattern that I see for Jews.
So you're saying anything said it's anti-Semitism?
You could argue that that's like something being used against the Jews to identify them, or some people use it as a thing that like Jews are like controlling that, and they want to signal they're in group so they get preference. I'm not saying either one. I'm just saying that it used to be every major bio on Wikipedia listed their religion or their religious background. But now only Jews, for the most part, only Jews are. And I think it's weird.
Well,
okay, so you can't say anything
switch that changed in the 50s as well. So,
all right, dude.
Or actually before that, the 30s.
I think a big reason for it is for pragmatic reasons regarding the fact that there's targeted hate at Jews for no reason other than their religious and cultural background and nothing to do with their race. Whether you're Sephardi, whether you are Ethiopian, or whether you are European Ashkenazi, hate crimes are proportionally against you because you're Jewish. And that's why the anti-Semitism exists.
Jews ain't a race.
That's why the census collects it. And that's why even someone like me, an atheist who renounces Judaism almost in its entirety, is considered Jewish because I honestly have no choice. My ethnic background, my cultural background is Jewish. There's nothing I can do about it. The same way there's Hispanic and non-Hispanic. Jewish is something like that.
Well, if you guys would stop being so sneaky, we wouldn't need Nazis.
What? Are you serious?
No, he's not.
Serious, you asshole.
He's just being an ass.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know.
Sorry,
I don't know what
Chris.
you're talking about as far as the profile picture thing, because back when I was a teenager in youth group, every single one of us loves Jesus on their Zanga page. I mean, otherwise,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Are you a real Christian?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, he's probably too young. It's fine.
No, you said I don't know the profile picture thing.
Oh no, you said something about how you only see people like that identify as Jewish are the only ones that like listed on their like profile.
No. I said specifically in Wikipedia, like all the categories when you go into a person, it's got their bio in it, and they've got their age, their college, their hometown, and that kind of how many their spouse, how many children they have. There used to be a box that said their religion or their religious background, and they deleted that box. But now, when you go and click on the bio tab, it hardly ever mentions the religion of Jewish people, but it hardly ever does not mention the religious of Jewish people.
All right.
Or the religious background.
Guys, hang on, Nivik. Sorry to cut you off. But, well, this is, if you guys are watching the little live stream here, this is so far our pathetic tiny little list of the declaration of right and left. On the left, we have abolishing social hierarchies, more gun control. Chad hates that one. A controlled distribution of resources, social equality. And on the right, we have to conserve a functioning society for the future, maintaining the social hierarchies. Whatever you can legally negotiate is yours. Now, as we move now into Nazism and the Nazi Party, I hope that we can all identify as we move through some more statements or claims or ideas that we can add to these lists. I want to start again because everyone wasn't here and I've just started a new YouTube stream. So I want to start with a quick reading from Wikipedia about the Nazi Party. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna read just the. Oh shit!
Yeah.
Are you guys still there?
Hello,
that horrible
hello.
Nazi joke that I just said, was that on the
We've
internet?
been waiting.
Yeah, that was definitely on the air, my man.
Oh, that sucks.
Don't say things that you don't mean.
No. Okay, you're being a.
No,
was
he's
that
fucking
on
with
you?
you.
Was that recorded on YouTube?
I think so.
Which one?
You might as well say, I sleep and I breathe.
Yeah, it was.
It's a joke. Any
Are we
jokes?
live on YouTube
Any
right
jokes
now?
are allowed. Yeah, we are
are.
live right now. So
Antifa's gonna love that. I'm sure I'm gonna find out about
Jesus
that.
Christ.
I've made some mistakes in live too.
hang on.
I got my full name. I'm talking about my ex-husband.
Okay, where did I get?
I assume when we did the lunch break that if there was live before that was the end of live.
I actually did. I did
September.
turn it off, but then I had just turned it back on when I.
Oh, so it was off. It was off.
Yeah.
Mistake.
It was
Okay,
off for
good.
it, I think.
I don't know about that, Trav. I think you're psyop now.
We're live. We're live.
Anyways,
I'm watching right now.
Okay,
part 2.
hang on. Let me get going here. Okay, so where did I get cut off there from you guys? Anyone?
We were talking about
we
before
basically-
we came. We were talking about how you had to corral moose with your maple syrup to get your Wi-Fi back.
You had to
Yeah,
put
you
your
have to
Wi-Fi
find the
toque
one
on.
with the antenna. Your Wi-Fi toque. Go.
Screw you guys! You're all Nazis.
So I need a straight answer. Are we live on YouTube right
Yes.
now or not?
Yes.
Yeah, we really are.
Although I'm-
when you said
Although
that,
I'm
Dylan,
fucking
you really
lagging
were live,
hard
dude.
here.
Like, yeah.
Okay, guys, I just want to quickly do the first couple lines on Wikipedia of the Nazi Party, and we can get into it. I plan on doing a lot of listening, but what I hope we can do is add to our what I'm calling the Declaration of Right and Left document here, which is, of course, a working document we've been working on today. Appreciate all your guys' work. But let's start with this. Okay, the Nazi Party. This article is about the Nazi Party that existed in Germany from 1920 to 1945. For the ideology, see Nazism. For other Nazi parties, see Nazi Party. Okay. The Nazi Party officially, the National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP, was a far-right political party in Germany, active between 1920 and 1945, that created and supported the ideology of Nazism. Its precursor, the German Workers' Party, existed from 1919 to 1920. The Nazi Party emerged from the German nationalist, racist, and populist paramilitary culture, which Freikorps, which fought against the communist uprising in post-World War I Germany. The party was created to draw workers away from communism and into Volkisch nationalism. Volkisch. Initially, Nazi political strategy focused on anti-big business, anti-bourgeois, and anti-capitalist rhetoric. Although this was later downplayed to gain the support of business leaders, and in the 1930s, the party's main focus shifted to anti-Semitic and anti-Marxist themes. Okay, so you guys have the list so far of what we've agreed upon with regards to left and right. We can, of course,
Did you post it?
Yeah, I have it. Let me here. Yeah, I'm gonna just share my screen here.
Is that Bruce? Is that Vertical Bruce? Oh my god,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
digging Vertical Bruce.
It's Vertical Bruce.
I'm digging Vertical Bruce with the pipe. It's actually avant-garde as fuck.
Hell yeah.
That is super avant-garde. Okay,
Yeah, I'm
so
listening to John Coltrane right now.
I think
Vertical Bruce would be a great name for a 1980s movie. Vertical Bruce. It's like a guy who's like just surfing all the time and shit.
Super gay guy with pink pants. He's always surfing. Yeah.
Okay.
Bruce is a super gay name, apparently.
He's not straight. It's vertical.
Definitely.
Anyway,
Okay.
Pangburn, yes.
What I want to do is start with, since it has been mostly Chad and Doolittle, who have been hammering it out in the text chat in the Pangburn library, which I really appreciate. You guys, for the most part, have been keeping it within the realm of good faith, helpful discourse. I think I maybe had to come in a couple times and say, let's just cool our jets here and come back. But I want to start off with giving Chad a chance to just talk about how the reasons why he thinks the Nazi Party is left leaning, or right leaning, and then we'll give Doolittle a chance, and then then we'll open it up and just have a chance to have an open discussion about this. And what I hope is that we can identify more things for our right and left declaration here. So please be on the lookout for that, and I'm sure they're going to come up. So go ahead, Chad.
Yeah. So to give a little bit of background, this all started when I claimed Steven Crowder as a bad faith actor. So to give like a short thesis, I would argue the Nazis were not socialists or leftists, and were actually the opposite. The entire reason the term fascist has a separate definition other than socialist is due to the very different political structures within. The push to revise history and paint the Nazis as a socialist, quote unquote, group is an effort by bad faith actors pushing like a well-known political structure that's recognized worldwide as evil, fascism, onto a completely unrelated political target to damage the cultural perception. There's a lot of historical revisionism, conflation, and purposefully like ill-defined terms to shift the ire away from what they perceive as like their side, right? To strawman what they've created for the left. So that's overall the reasons. Now, would you like me to start with historical evidence to talk about why the Nazis were right?
Do it, man. Just go. Just do it. Just do it. You got the floor. Just
whatever you want.
Okay, all right. So, literally,
can we hit the low-hanging fruit first? And like, what is Nazi? Is that an acronym?
The Nazi, it's a shorthand for the NSDAP. So
what does that stand for?
I understand. We've actually had quite a bit of back and forth between.
Let's just Chad. You have the floor, and when he's done, everyone's gonna be quiet, and Doolittle is gonna respond. And once you're done, then everything. But just take your time and do what you gotta do.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree. And I will shut up after this. If you could address that.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Room before you go forward.
I know you're excited to talk about the National Socialist German Workers' Party, which is the official name of the post-Weimar political party that eventually turned into what we now know as the Nazi Party. And everyone has that conflation and that gut reaction. They were like, oh, guess what? The National Socialist German Workers' Party must be socialist, which is just hilariously wrong in the same way. And talk about low-hanging fruit. Have you ever heard of the DRPK, villain?
Just answer it. Don't no back and forth. Just answer it.
Yes. So the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, colloquially known as the North Korean government, is literally the Democratic People's Republic. I don't think it's democratic. It's not for the people, and it's not a republic. But it's still called that. So in the same way, the Nazis were called the National Socialist German Workers' Party. As a bit of historical context to what Doolittle was saying earlier in the chat before, we were talking about the historical context for right versus left. Started off in the French Revolution, where the Revolutionary Party that was anti-monarchy and anti-bourgeoisie sat on the left side of their parliamentary system, and the monarchists / more conservative groups are over on the right side. So that ended up basically kind of becoming viral, for lack of a better word, back in those days, and was adapted by most of the other countries in the world. So the Nazis and Germany as a whole did the same thing. In the Weimar Republic, when there were still multiple parties, the National Socialist German Workers' Party actually sat all the way on the very right side of their parliament, while the, of course, communists were all the way on the left side. So if you ask any Nazi and any National Socialist German Workers' Party whether they were right or left, they would obviously say they were right. Hitler did the same thing. They did have some slight dissent within the party because there's actually a gentleman named Gregor Strasser who was very much the quote-unquote left side of the Nazi party. He was actually murdered by Hitler, if that kind of tells you anything. And he wasn't really a leftist by any measure, but he was more left than Hitler, which is, I guess, counts for something. But anyway, long story short, I would like to, I guess, finish off with a quote from Mein Kampf because it is so important and tells you so effectively how right-wing, quote-unquote, and anti-communist and Marxist and socialist the Nazis were. First off, to quote Hitler in Mein Kampf is, if, with the help of his Marxist creed, the Jew is victorious over the other peoples of the world, his crown will be the funeral wreath of humanity, and this planet will, as did thousands of years ago, move through the ether devoid of men. So that's obviously, I mean, he's anti-Marxist, he's anti-left. He sat all the way on the right side of the political aisle, figuratively and metaphorically, and I mean, in political ideology. Same thing, I mean, if you read Mein Kampf, which I have, sadly, it does specify multiple times Hitler's disdain for Marxism and the left, and specifically, the global Jewry, quote unquote, to use a disgusting term, that overall. So all in all, there's no way that you can take any sort of honest argument and say the Nazis were liberal leftists without completely and arbitrarily redefining the term of leftists. And I will close with that statement and then allow Doolittle to go too. I don't want to speak for too long. Oh, hello.
Yeah, sorry, you on mute. Did you want to say that again?
Oh no.
Okay.
So yeah, I do have some supporting arguments that I'll get into as time goes on, but I'll consider that my opening arguments.
Okay. I didn't realize this was going to be a debate, but okay. So
no, yeah, it's not.
As somebody,
it's not Doolittle.
Okay.
It's just I wanted to give you guys the first opportunity to speak what you wanted to say, because I know you guys were engaging in the library, and I found it interesting.
The initial spat was over whether Steven Crowder, when speaking to his audience, is engaging in misinformation when he calls Nazis leftist and or socialist. When you're talking about Steven Crowder, who's talking to his audience, Steven Crowder's obviously a right-leaning political pundit in the United States of America in the year 2020, or at least for the last 5 or 6 years, and his audience is also right-leaning, mostly predominantly American Republicans that he's talking to. And when he's saying that Nazis are leftists and or socialists, he's not referring to a historical context of the French Revolution. He's referring to the political spectrum as it is today. So if you look at what was the platform of the Nazi Party, not just what they named themselves, but what they used to advertise to get themselves elected in Germany in the 20s, 30s, 40s. That has a significant amount of overlap with what we call the leftists today in America. And I wouldn't say liberal, because liberal is different than leftist, but there's a significant amount of overlap if you look at the 25 points of the Nazi Party, or the NASDP. Starting on about point 9, you can basically just copy and paste everything that Bernie wants for America, and there you have it. And that's a little bit of let's just say boiling it down to simplicity, but there's obviously going to be some nuance where there's a difference. But the Nazis were undoubtedly socialist in that they asked for socialist policies, got elected on the premise that they were going to enact socialist policies, and then they enacted socialist policies. Whether or not Hitler himself ended up part of it, they thought is that socialist. And they're still leftist in the context in current modern day between Crowder and the people that he's talking about who are American Republicans. The Nazis have a lot more in common with the left of America today than they have with the right of America today. They're certainly not conservative by American standards. To even talk about who sits on what side of the parliament, there were not any parties at the point of that were two socialist parties, the Party and the Socialist Party, and they were fighting. There was or even as the French was nothing like that. There was a socialist revolution in Germany, and there were Marxists and anti-Marxists who were also socialists that ended up winning. So it's not really, I can't say that Trav is wrong in saying that the Nazis were not on the right at the time, but at the time there was nobody on what. We would call the right today. So the Nazis were in fact on the left from today's perspective, or from Crowder's perspective. So therefore, what Crowder said was not misinformation.
Okay.
That's my assertion. I'm not saying I like Nazis either.
Well, yeah,
you've
so far
those words.
So far been, I respect the hell out of you, man, for giving at least honest arguments above anything else. So I can't appreciate you enough for that.
Can I say one thing to what he said?
Go ahead.
No.
Yeah.
He said socially towards leftists, and where leftists was we said that it was about equality for all in opportunity, and the Nazis weren't for that.
I don't think I said that.
Yeah,
you said leftist.
You
said social. You said there's socialists and leftists.
I actually I want to hear from the rest of the room, like what their take is on this, and give everyone an opportunity. But yeah, Doolittle, can you clarify for Nivik what he thinks you said?
Well, I mean, there's an argument about egalitarianism, I think. Oh. And the idealism, the ideology with socialism, I think the ideological socialism as we hear about it in America today has an egalitarian aspect in which all humans are equally valued, and as someone pointed out earlier, I think it was Don said that we can stop reading there when the Nazis say Jews don't count as people, because that's anti-egalitarianism. And so my argument is that socialism, in the socialism versus not socialism argument, anyway. So socialism in at least in the economic perspective is the government or the social ownership of the means of production, or the centralized control of the means of production, as opposed to capitalism, which is each individual might own his own property and dictate its own. So it's a widely distributed control of the means of production. In this case of capitalism, socialism is the opposite. It's a centrally dictated control of the means of production. Egalitarianism is orthogonal to socialism in that once who counts. Once the society determines who counts as belonging to society, it doesn't affect who owns the means of production. So we could say Jews don't belong as part of society, and they're not humans, and therefore they don't own a share of the means of production. And that's it's evil, but it's not against the principles of socialism.
And blacks.
And since my name was invoked, can I go ahead?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Forgot blacks.
So I wanted to. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, so when we go back to the Nazi Party and the 14 and like the 25 points you brought, the reason why I brought up point 9 and the Jews and all that stuff was because a big part of left-wing ideas is about not creating and destroying man-made or even unjust natural hierarchies. The whole point of the Nazi Party was the superiority of one group of people over another group of people, and taking the government and enshrining that hierarchy, because the way in which the society was handling itself was one which promoted an uneven hierarchy. The Nazi Party, specifically in their 25 points, wanted to create a colony for Germany, where workers, individuals who would benefit the state, who would be controlled by the state, would not have a say in the state, and would not own any part of the means of production. This is something that is antithetical to socialism in its entirety. As now, when saying socialism, socialism doesn't have to be a centralized form of government. It doesn't have to be a planned economy. It can be entirely libertarian, where there are simply laws in the books that when you work at a company full time and you work there for a certain period of time, you are now liable to own some of that company, whether it be through stocks, whether it be through tickets, whether it be through scaled pay, whether it be through voting decisions. And this is all tenets of socialism. The Nazi Party did not do that. The Nazi Party in the 20s might have had that, but through the evolution, just like any party, just like the Republican Party, was once against slavery, and then it's changed right afterward. There's a whole shift. Party switch that happens all the time. And the same thing happened with the Nazi Party, the National Socialist Party of, So it entirely switched, and socialism was off the menu in its entirety. Hitler was an extreme state. He loved the state control of production. He wanted companies to be run by the state, had laws from the state. So
you're
that is one
saying
thing about
that's
why
not
they're not.
socialism?
It is very much. Let's not conflate social programs like universal healthcare, like free education, and water for socialism. One of the greatest proponents of capitalism, the father of modern capitalism, Adam Smith, believed in public mail systems, which were talked about as massive public social programs, where no longer did individuals own, right, roads and all that type of stuff. Rather, the state did. Rather, the state owned the mailbox, right? This is a not socialist idea. It's a capitalist one, and it's one that Adam Smith proposed. So social programs have nothing to do with socialism. They have to do with government power. So the fact that Nazi Germany did that does not make this socialist. Now, when it comes to being right-wing versus left-wing, if we pulled up, the things that we agree to within ourselves, one of the greatest points that white supremacists and ethno-nationalists say are things like we must secure the existence of our people and our country for the future of white children. This is one of the main points that Hitler said. This is a white nationalist called the 14 words. To conserve a society for the future is an inherently right-wing thing. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to do so, but what I am saying is that the Nazis definitely agreed with that. They believed in a concept called cultural Marxism. At the time, they called it cultural Bolshevism. It was also called cultural Marxism, which was in exact opposition to what they called the Jewish class, that were the elite, who through media, literature, and academia corrupted the nature of the country. These are right-wing ideas. They have always been right-wing ideas. They have been right-wing ideas since France. They have been right-wing ideas since Rome, and they are going to be during 1930s right-wing ideas, and today right-wing ideas. And that is why I believe the Nazi Party is neither leftist.
I think you should have brought these up earlier when we were talking about what are right-wing ideas. if you want to start defining these as right-wing ideas. We had a whole 4 hours devoted to that.
He's absolutely right, Doolittle. I mean, before we jump into everyone getting in at once, Dan, were you done?
I before you go, Chad. Thanks, Don. I just wanted to check in with Amy. Amy, what do you think about what you've heard so far? And
you can just get me. I'm kind of just half listening and multitasking, and
okay.
It's not
I
my.
want to ask Don a question about what he just said. Did you say that the 14 words originated with Hitler?
No, I said that it's something akin to that, and if I did say that, I misspoke. But it's something akin to that is present in very fascist and very right-wing places, where the idea is that you must secure a society as it is for the future of our children, or people like us, whether you change white children to be Indians, or the future of Hindi, the way it is in the BJP, or you change it to keep America as America is. This is a right-wing idea. This is just how it is.
I just want to keep going down the list here. Scott, what do you got? I know you got something tasty. Fucking. Oh, I think he ran away.
He might be muted.
Bruce, how about you?
Am I muted?
No, you're there.
Nope.
Well, if you ask me, it seems that the definitional game of painting the Nazis as leftist or right wing is shit throwing in an effort to undermine either side of the political aisle's arguments at all by painting them as Nazis. And so neither side of the aisle wants authoritarianism unless you're on the hardest side of both aisles. So practically speaking, whether or not they're right or left, in today's language or not, is a cursory issue to the problems we're typically trying to solve. But it's convenient to call the other side Nazi without defining terms, and so that seems to be what happens all the time. I just want to throw out. I don't want to get into a debate on economics because that's not what this is about. But I would like to throw out, like, juxtaposing capitalism and socialism is disingenuous. I think capitalism is a set of tools that have been compiled into a term to define capitalism. It's not a system of government, whereas socialism is a system of government or order. And so to say a system of socialist government against a capitalist government, well, they're not synonymous, or at least they're not in the same category. Capitalism is a category of tools. Socialism is not. Socialism is an order of government. So that's what I think about the whole subject.
Yeah. Whoever's next.
So Don,
hopefully we'll get to rebuttals.
Do you have anything else to add, Don? Since we've landed on you.
Oh, I'm back. Oh,
or we can go to villain.
No, I think I'll just say one little thing. I would disagree with you that socialism isn't juxtaposed to capitalism, as capitalism is inherently based on the private ownership, not personal, right? Socialism can have personal ownership of property, right, like your house, but you can have private ownership. And socialism is inherently against private ownership, and it's social ownership. And social and private are, as we would like to say here, orthogonal. I would think that therefore capitalism and socialism are orthogonal.
One is a system of order and a way of placing things in a specific way to ensure some bits of fairness or outcome. The other is the natural occurrence of exchange with people.
Yeah,
so
and that's where I would disagree.
What did you say?
Let's not.
What did you say? Socialism, capitalism.
Let's not conflate free markets with capitalism or socialism.
Yes.
You can definitely have a free market, a non-planned economy without government, completely anarchistic, and still be socialist. That is entirely possible. As you will have you will have people without a state power organize themselves socially with social rules that do not let people own
this would cease to be
privately.
This would cease to be socialism. You're describing collectivism.
So I would very much encourage you. I don't know if to like read up on libertarian socialism, people like Rosa Luxemburg, and it is entirely libertarian socialism without state governments.
Yeah, but you're still telling me that collectivism is socialism.
No. Socialism is the social ownership of the means of production, and capitalism is the private ownership of the means of production. And it all comes back to
the means of production being forced on another. The means of production being owned by the social group, forced upon another, and disengaging with that individual or the group of individuals because they're not a part of the group is socialism. Collectivism exists within the capitalist economy.
But I'm not talking about collectivism.
You are talking about collectivism.
No, he's not in any way.
Then socialism then socialism is a system of order.
This might, before we get too far down this sounds like another rabbit hole of semantic arguments. I do think we need to finish going around the room and then
the point is one thing.
What's a private group?
The point is one thing requires the use of force, the other does not inherently.
You can have completely and entirely democratic socialism that involves no force and agreement, just like we agree on many things that don't involve force. We don't have
collectivism.
We do not need to. It's okay. Sure, let's move on.
Collectives exist within free market economies.
No, move on.
Yeah, no, it's
you got to sort this.
I like hearing you guys sort this out. We're kind of at that stage now, so it's fine.
It is interesting.
So you don't need to use force for things that you agree on. You need to use force for things that you don't agree on.
If you have to exclude a person because they're not a part of the ownership that required, so unions, for instance, that would occur in a socialism, or even a collective, would require the use of force. The market itself doesn't require use of force.
What do you mean? I can say that capitalism involves force too. Like that has nothing to do with socialism or capitalism. If you own a piece of property and I come to and be like, "Yo, it's mine," you go, "No, here's a gun. Here's the police."
You guys are merging both socialism and capitalism.
That's what I'm saying. That's not socialism. That's just any government that protects the rights of the people and what is considered yours versus mine uses force. Like that's how we have laws.
That's
right?
not an inherently socialist idea at all. So collectivism, and correct me if I'm wrong, as I understand it, is usually the opposite of individualism, while socialism is talking about being juxtaposed against capitalism. These are parallel ideas, and even though they head in a similar direction, they are not the same, and they shouldn't be conflated.
But they have some connections with each other.
That's why I said they're parallel.
Capitalism is what happens to an economic system when individualism is withheld. When it's held up. I mean.
Well, let's check in. Let's check in with Villain. Villain, I'm sure you got a hot take on Nazism.
Yeah, go for it.
Pass.
Okay, fair enough.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, me neither.
Chris,
well, you guys are getting too mired down into
no, we need to
definitions stuff, and you're not freely discussing the hot topic of Nazism.
We have
to. The hot topic of Nazism.
I'm not criticizing. I didn't mean that to sound like a criticism, but this isn't my form of dialogue.
Okay.
So that's fair enough. Chris.
They're not sorting out the
Nivik, we're almost at you, and you're going to get to fucking roll with this thing like you wouldn't believe. You're going to get to run to the moon with it. We're almost there. Chris.
I want to take my thing back to ask, Dr. Doolittle question. The 25 points of Nazism and after point 9 is all socialist. Can you go through those and just real quick and
Here, well,
real quick.
Yeah, Doolittle, go ahead, and then we'll go to Chris.
Okay, I'm gonna pull it up here.
Sure.
Nazis 25 points.
I'll just give us some elevator music while we wait. I don't want to wait for my life to be
point number
over.
1. Well, you know what? Some of these are ridiculous, right? So,
okay.
Number 1, we demand the unification of all Germans in the Greater Germany on the basis of right of self-determination.
These are interesting, by the way. I just want to make sure we can hear you. Just if you could speak up a little bit into your mic.
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
That's better.
Number 1, we demand the unification of all Germans in the Greater Germany on the basis of the right of self-determination of peoples. Sounds like something out of the UN Charter, though.
Cool.
Number 2, we demand equality of rights for the German people in respect to the other nations, abrogation of the peace treaties of Versailles and Saint-Germain. So that's...
There we go. They're left.
Not being... Treaty of Versailles was not so nice to the Germans. Number 3, we demand land and territory for the sustenance of our people and colonization for our surplus population. Yeah, that sounds like a little bit of expansionist. I'm not sure that falls in left or right.
It is called Lebensraum.
What I do want to say, just to clear up maybe any confusion, the first point that you made, that those treaties, basically Germans were paying like 50% or like 45% of their national like GDP to other countries, and it was like destroying
for
them.
reparations for World War
One. Yep.
Yeah. Only a member of the race can be a citizen. And by the race, I want to translate that to La Raza. A member of La Raza can only be one who is of Mexican blood without consideration of creed. Consequently, Don Don cannot be a member of La Raza.
I mean, I listen to Sublime. Anyway, continue. I would like to get to rebuttals here in a little bit.
Whoever has no citizenship is able to live in Germany only as a guest. The right to determine matters concerning administration and law belongs only to the citizen. That basically means non-citizens can't vote. And then there's like a whole paragraph about non-citizens can't vote. We demand that the state... Sorry.
No, I was saying, where is this at?
What point are you on?
I'm on, that was 6.
Oh, that was 6.
7. Yeah, we demand that the state be charged first with providing the opportunity for a livelihood and way of life for the citizens. Here's where it starts to sound like socialists in America. We demand that the state be charged first with providing the opportunity for a livelihood and a way of life for the citizens. If it is impossible to sustain the total population of the state, then the members of foreign nations, non-citizens, are to be expelled from the Reich. That's a little bit weird. But let's just say
basically they're saying we need to set up laws.
We gotta set up laws so that everybody gets jobs. Yeah. And if everyone doesn't have jobs, we get to kick people out.
As long as they're
not everybody.
You know, that's a little bit weird.
Yeah. A little bit.
Any further immigration of non-citizens is to be prevented. We demand that all non-Germans who have immigrated to Germany since a certain date be forced to immediately leave. So that's like not anti-immigration, but it's like the opposite of amnesty. Yeah, you're good as long as you go.
What side is this?
Just go in Holocaust Encyclopedia.
Just look up Nazi Party 25 points. Nazi Party 25 points.
Doolittle, just keep going, man.
Yeah,
all
stop interrupting.
Must have equal. Okay, yeah. All citizens must have equal rights. Number 9. All citizens must have equal rights and obligations. That's not too foreign of a notion to us, is it?
Left to right. Yep.
Number 10. Number 10, the first obligation of every citizen must be to work both spiritually and physically. The activity of individuals is not to counteract the interests of the universality, but must have its result in the framework of the whole for the benefit of all. Consequently, we demand.
Yeah.
Very Catholic.
That's well, that sounds a lot like the individual must be subjected to the state.
That's that collectivist thing, isn't it?
Number 11, abolition of unearned work and labor incomes and the breaking of rent slavery.
Only for white.
No, it doesn't say only if you're white.
It is only if you're a citizen, and a citizen is only those
only a
who are
white
deemed-
German. And
abolition of unearned incomes. That's taxation. That's essentially if you made capital gains, or if you had rent on a property that you own.
Yeah,
you're not allowed to make a profit.
No.
Profit off of ownership.
That's what that means.
Keep going.
Okay.
No more commentary.
Number 12. Number 12. Okay, we'll just read it.
Hey,
12.
Hey, Doolittle, 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I think we should pause on this one. Can you read it one more time, and then we should get some takes on this, because there seems to be a disagreement in the interpretation.
The abolition of unearned work and labor incomes. Unearned means work and labor. So earned income would be if you did work or labor for the income. Unearned income would be any other kind of income, such as capital gains or rents. So
or inheritance.
Number 11 is
that's a communist talking point of the profit off of ownership alone.
Inheritance too. It's the proponents for wealth tax would cite something like that.
The breaking of rent slavery, or as the guy in New York says, the rent is too damn high.
Yeah,
well,
same
I
as
mean,
interest slavery or debt slavery.
I'm blown away right now because I've never heard somebody agree with me on that. I have been arguing for years that rent is immoral and it's usury. And nobody I read an anarchist essay from 1840s. I think the ownership of residential property that you do not occupy yourself is a soft form of slavery. You're perpetually taking an income for a finite commodity. I think the entire world would change if you weren't allowed to own
fixing the air conditioner.
I think the whole world would change if we outlawed the ownership of homes you didn't live in.
Hang on.
That first part, what they're talking about is interest. So you're talking about bank loans, right? The very first part of that statement.
Yeah.
From what I take it, it's talking about accruing interest and taking money in interest. So you're talking about bankers.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
if you take it in the lens
in that time,
if you take it in the lens of Germans, and banks during the time and their acts to violent Jews, that would.
So the categories of unearned income is rent, interest, and capital gains. That's basically what you got. If you buy something and you sell it later, that's unearned income.
Yeah, I mean, this is just like a way of placing, like a broad way of playing identity politics of the time. Because anyone that knew anything at the time would have been like, the only people that actually earn money
Jews that do all that unearned income.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what it's like identity politics of the time. You know, they like just trying to play off of that idea.
Yeah.
In consideration of the monstrous sacrifice in property and blood that each war demands of the people, personal enrichment through a war must be designated as a crime. Therefore, the confiscation of all war profits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's okay. So that's anti
Well, not necessarily.
War
I don't
profits.
think we ever came to a strict agreement that authoritarian is strictly left or right. So that's something an authoritarian would say, like exactly. So
confiscation of war profits. No, well, war profits is like if you.
So that's both sides.
Whoever makes the jets that we sell it to the U.S.
Yeah, no, Scott is correct.
I just want to also point out that this was written in 1920, and it just wasn't changed.
And I would also like to, like I said, once I get
it's a platform, it's a political
my
party's
specific
platform.
Hang on, guys.
Yes,
guys.
Once I get to my rebuttals, I will clarify all of this, and I'm so excited.
So number 13, we demand the nationalization of all previous associated industries and trusts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nationalization of all industries. That sounds like socialism to me. I don't know.
Sure.
Number 14, we demand a division of profits of all heavy industries. Also sounds like socialism. Number 15, we demand an expansion on a large scale of old age welfare. Where have we heard this before?
Weimar, Germany.
Rattle them off.
FDR.
The Weimar Republic, but continue.
FDR. Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Yes, sir.
Lenin, Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov. Donnie, shut the fuck up.
Number six, we demand a creation of a healthy middle class and its conservation, immediate communalization of the great warehouses and their being leased at low cost to small firms, the utmost consideration of all small firms in contracts with the state, county, or municipality.
So that's both. Yeah, that's both, because Wright loves small business.
Communalization of great warehouses.
I will give you the historical context as soon as we're done with this.
We demand a land reform suitable to our needs, provision of a law for free expropriation of land for the purposes of public utility, the abolition of taxes on land, and prevention of all speculation in land, which basically means people can't own land.
That is
not own land, speculation in land. So
no, that's what I was talking about earlier. Is that not owning things that you don't personally use?
Yeah. Free expropriation of land for the purposes of public utility, that's essentially like eminent domain, but they don't have to pay you. For the eminent domain, it's just like, it's for the state. It's for the state, so we don't have to pay you for it. Yeah, sorry.
To expand it on that broader, horrifying statement topic, this goes to the idea of blood and soil. Like, you must live and die on the land that you use.
That's your farm. We demand 18. We demand struggle without consideration against those whose activity is injurious to the general interest.
Can you read that one again?
We demand struggle without consideration against those whose activity is injurious to the general interest. Common national criminals, usurers, Schreiber, and so forth are to be punished with death without consideration of confession or race.
That last little bit is incredibly important.
That's when you. No, that's when you get into the fucking meat of it.
So, wait, hold on a second. So, if somebody does stuff that's not so good for the whole community, then you get to kill them.
Yep, as dictated and decided on by the further himself.
Pretty rough, right? We demand substitution. We demand substitution of a German common law in place of the Roman law serving a materialistic world order. So there's one we haven't talked about, is materialism versus whatever the German common law that they're imagining.
Well, that's also comes down to Hitler's weird fucking connection to Catholicism.
So now here's where it gets super Bernie. Bernie Bro, part 20. The state is to be responsible for a fundamental reconstruction of our whole national education program to enable every capable and industrious German to obtain higher education and subsequently introduction into leading positions. And there's a whole paragraph about
I was going to say, there's still some more.
Schools.
I don't know what translation you're using, but
I'm just using alphahistory.com/Nazi Germany/Nazi Party -25.1920.
Okay, cool.
For certain
Plans of
people.
instruction of all educational institutions are to conform with the experiences of practical life. The comprehension of the concept of the state must be striven for by the school. Staatsbürgerkunde. As early as the beginning of understanding. We demand the education at the expense of the state of outstanding intellectually gifted children of poor parents without consideration of position or profession. So basically, free higher education, and if you're poor and gifted, yeah, the state pays for that too. And at the
America
earliest,
used to
and
be
at the
like that
earliest,
before the student loan system was put into place. If you were accepted to college,
the state
like
was never
it was
responsible
free.
for the reconstruction of our whole national education program.
But in America, if you were able to achieve entrance into college, it was almost always free or it would work out to be like $150 a year or $2,000 a year to go to like an Ivy League college until the like World War II area. Anyway,
The public school system is fundamentally a response from actions that the federal government had taken in like the 1940s to like start building up, and maybe even the 1930s, start building up to have a populace that's educated. And it's one of the greatest success stories in all of government spending all of time.
I have a completely antithetical point of view on that.
1850s,
people have different views on that.
The majority of people were illiterate.
Public school system came from
you would agree
the
that
model to make
after
factory workers and soldiers.
Hold on. In the 1850s, the majority of the people were illiterate. They couldn't even read. By the 1950s, the majority of the people were illiterate. They could read. That's such a big deal. Fundamentally huge.
So you would agree with Nazis on that point, which is what we're saying is you would agree with Nazis on that point.
Though.
Number 21.
Hang on.
Guys, wait
2 seconds. Let Scott respond.
If you're thinking you're getting a sting on me, you're not.
No,
I mean,
I'm just reading it, and you're like, yeah, Nazis are right. And I'm like, hey,
no, because there's many of societies all across the entire earth that have realized, like, hey, it's probably wise to educate our citizens, and that's. Fundamentally huge.
I would agree that there are many classifications of goods and services which are better handled by the state than by individuals.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, number 21.
By Bismarck.
Number 21.
So long as someone is forced to pay for it with.
But more public education is a position of the left in America today. Number 21. The state is to care for the elevating national health by protecting the mother and child, by outlawing child labor, by the encouragement of physical fitness. What was her name? What was her name? Encouraging physical fitness. By means of the legal.
I hear you're talking about.
No, Obama's wife.
Michelle.
Mrs. Obama. Michelle Obama.
Mammy.
Yeah.
Michael? You mean Michael?
Michael Obama, by means of the legal establishment
Careful,
of
guys.
gymnastic
dangerously
and sports,
close to slander.
By means of the legal establishment of the gymnastic and sports obligation, by the utmost support. So here, I was joking. I'm sorry. So the utmost support of all organizations concerned with the physical instruction of the young. So the Nazis believed in national health care, protecting of the mother and child. I don't know who would disagree with that. Outlawing child labor.
Okay.
Now, who disagrees with outlawing child labor?
I do.
I mean, at least he's honest. Go for it. Now continue on. I want to get through this as fast as we can.
Encouragement to physical fitness. Yeah. Okay. But they also wanted to force kids to have to do sports, which is bizarre. We demand the abolition of the mercenary troops and formation of a national army.
Yep.
So no hiring soldiers.
Yeah, no PMCs or Hessians.
No Blackwater.
Yeah.
They're called Academy now, but yes.
We demand legal opposition to known lies and their promulgation through the press. In order to...
Who does this sound
I'm sorry.
like?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sounds like you, Chad. We demand
I
legal
definitely don't like disinformation.
We demand legal opposition to known lies and their promulgation through the press. But that's,
Can you read that one more time and enunciate the words?
In order to enable the provision of a German press.
Wait. Can you
What?
really? I'm honestly asking. Can you read that last one, but enunciate the words more?
Enunciate.
We demand legal opposition to known lies and their promulgation through the press. In order to enable the provision of a German press, we demand that all writers and employees of the newspapers appearing in the German language must be members of the race, as in no Jews are allowed to write news stories.
Or Slavs or Romanis.
Non-German newspapers must be required to have the express permission of the state to be published. They may not be printed in the German language. Non-Germans are forbidden by law any financial interest in German publications or any influence on them, and as punishment for violations of closing of such a publication, as well as immediate expulsion from the Reich of the non-German concerned, publications which are counter to the general good are to be forbidden. We demand legal prosecution of artistic and literary forms which exert a destructive influence on our national life, and a closure of organizations opposing the above demands. So basically,
anti-fake news.
Russians aren't allowed to write newspaper articles or make art in Hollywood.
Or Jews or Romanis
or Jews.
Slavs. Or...
We demand freedom of religion for all religious denominations within the state, so long as they do not endanger its existence or oppose the moral senses of the Germanic race. The party, as such, advocates the standpoint of a positive Christianity without binding itself confessionally to any one denomination.
I think that's an important part.
That might be a little bit right. That might be a little bit right-leaning there. So I'm just going to gloss over that. I'm going to reread that.
Right.
Freedom of religion hold on a second. It combats the Jewish materialistic spirit within and around us, and is convinced that a lasting recovery of our nation can only succeed from within on the framework common utility precedes individual utility. That's where it goes leftist on you.
Maybe.
But even right-leaning people believe that. That has nothing to do right people do still believe in community. Right? I mean, it's not like anything that ever calls out to a community of individuals means that it's left.
There's crossover on the right and the left.
Common utility precedes.
Church is a community.
What point did you just read?
Common utility, 24. Number 24. Common utility precedes individual utility.
Common utility versus individual utility. That is a very right-leaning position.
No, not at all.
What? That's a left-leaning position. Well, it depends on what you mean.
America first.
Common versus individual?
Exactly. It depends what you mean, because I mean, you can look at conservative communities.
Nobody is making the argument. Hang on a second.
Are very much about common interest, so conservative communities still has common interest.
Yeah, of course. Nobody's making the argument that
yet. Let him finish.
I understand. Nobody's saying that populism doesn't exist.
Let him finish, Bruce.
He's just talking about populism.
Bruce is good.
I'm
agreeing
with him.
But yeah.
No, but you are though, because it's the same thing. Like populism is also an inherent form of what's happening here. It's the same thing that's happening in the U.S. It's populism.
So I'm not specifically referring to populism. I'm just more referring to community.
You described populism.
By your definition, sure. Let's move on.
I'm referring to like what holds communities together. You know, in any community, everybody has like shared beliefs or systems that like. So in any church, like there are certain things that somebody can do that's going to get them kicked out of that church. So they fundamentally right off the bat have to work within this specific moral framework that's been laid down by this group of people in the church. So that in and of itself is a group dynamic. You know,
and that's populism.
But okay, let's move on.
Yeah, Chad, stop trying to coach the conversation. Just let them talk.
The argument that's trying to be made is that there are people in the Nazi Party and the people in the United States that share similar ideology around a certain group of people that need to be protected and upheld, and not be infiltrated by a separate group of people based on the popular concerns. The populist movement is nothing.
It's not a certain group of people on the left. It's everybody.
No. I get where you're coming from, Bruce. Like when I went there,
there's populism left, there's populism right. Like there's populism left, populism right. I mean, it's.
Yeah, so when I went there, I wasn't necessarily thinking about tying it in with the conversation we were having. I was just like pointing out the fact that like within this idea of people thinking groups are only a leftist thing. No, I think that's as much on the left and right.
Right,
like, there's
correct.
There's no differentiation there.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. Yeah. And I thought you were like pointing into the political sphere.
Oh no, yeah.
Today, because didn't you say America first too?
I did.
No, I did not. Yeah.
Well, maybe someone said it where you're talking then.
The left, it's about everybody.
Somebody said that.
Chad,
the last point,
they're all conflated together. Yeah. They're all pushed together. Yeah.
Yeah. The last point is basically a statement for a central unlimited authority, which is, I don't know. To me, that's
authoritarian,
antithetical to the U.S. Constitution, whether you want to call it somewhere in the left. I don't think there's
absolutely
right. It's authoritarian. At
unlimited authority of the central parliament over the whole Reich, and it's
unlimited power.
So basically 25. Yes. Basically, 25 says, no, America. The whole thing that America's about is limiting power to any given party or it basically says we're going to have a dictatorship, and we're like, so it's anti-American. Number 25 basically says nobody that identifies as American has to say that.
Thanks for reading that, Doolittle. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Chad,
can you link
Chad,
that?
Now let's get Chad in, because Chad was mentioning that he's got historical context that will add some clarity. So.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a good amount of historical context that we can add that actually will kind of shed a little bit of light on a few of the points specifically. And then we'll kind of go into a more general, broad, topic. But to start off, I remember in the first things that you said, Dr. Doolittle, we're talking about the left and the right parties in Weimar Germany and how there was only a few, right? You said there was...
And there's two leftist parties and there were no right parties.
Right. So there was actually 19 different right parties, and there was only 8 left parties. Now, for the sake of brevity, I won't name all of them. I'll just name, I would argue, like the big 3 that really gained popularity. 2 of which were left. There was the Communist Party, the KPD, and then there was the SPD, which is the Social Democratic Party. Those 2 were quote-unquote leftists because they established everything based on a socialist principle. This would kind of get into a little bit of a definitional argument against what Bruce was saying earlier, because socialism in and of itself is not a political structure. It's a political ideology and a philosophy, not a thing through which we create. But anyway, like I said, the SPD and the KPD versus the Nazi Party, which is the NSDAP, which is on the far right. There were 18 other not far right, but there are 18 other right parties. And they have again, the Conservative Volksparty, the Conservative People's Party, translated. That was another one. There was the Deutsche Volksparty, which was the German People's Party. There was Pro-Weimar Republic, which was actually A-OK with the way that things were and didn't want it to change. There was the Against the Government, Kreis Solitär Volkendienst, and forgive my German, I speak Russian, not German. All of that sort of thing is just really showing how much of a discrepancy between the right and the left there really was, as there was 19 rightist parties and only 8 left. On top of that, there was only 6 center parties. To show you a little bit of historical context onto how far right Weimar Germany already existed, that gives a good example. Now, a lot of that reactionary movement was done because the Treaty of Versailles was so harsh against the Germans. It caused so much economic turmoil and so much social strife that they needed a lot of reactionary parties. And sure enough, 19 of them came about, because that tends to be, I would argue, a trait of the right. They tend to form this idea of the other. In the Nazi Party's case, it was the international Jewry again, or the cultural Marxists, or the communists, or anything like that. And they had to fight against that. So in this case, they were like the bankers and the landowners and all these people who control these international strings are keeping the German people down. So they created the Nazi Party. Now that was pretty important. We talked a little bit about the 14 words, and I don't necessarily want to go too deep into that because Villain was right. He probably knows the history better than I do, but that definitely wasn't coming from Hitler specifically. That was actually from another guy. I think his name was Dan. Oh shoot, I don't even remember his name. Anyway, long story short, that didn't come from Hitler. That was neo-Nazis later on. The next thing is point 20 specifically, and 21 as well, talking about the formation, the recreation of nationalized schools and nationalized healthcare, were actually both already established, both in Weimar Germany and honestly way earlier in the days of Otto von Bismarck, if anyone remembers those guys, or that guy. He specifically was the one to create literally what's called the Bismarck model, which is the social health insurance model. So he was a super, authoritarian military leader who was an awesome person to study in history, who created this social health insurance model. That was something that was appropriated by the Nazi Party because, hey, why fix something that's not broken? So they just used that and then kind of campaigned off that before. Now, on top of that, these 25 points are a great little point in history to look at and kind of understand how the Nazis came to power. Because Dan's 100% right. They were written in 1920, which is great and all, because that was still in the days of the Weimar Republic. Now, there is absolutely no reason to believe that those models were ever followed or even considered past the point of Hitler being anointed as the next, leader of the Weimar Republic. And like I said before, there's this guy that I really, really hope you guys will look into, Gregor Strasser, who was to the left of Hitler. So he specifically was murdered again by Hitler because he was too much of a leftist and wanted to go against the leftist, quote unquote, policies of the Nazis. Gregor Strasser made an argument directly to Hitler saying, hey, you're straying from what our party said they were going to do. I won't be able to support you much longer if you continue this. Of course, being an autocrat, Hitler decided to, nope, I am doing what I want to do because it's most important, and the racial segment of this and the racial purity is the one thing that is important to me. So I will nationalize all power underneath me specifically. And then, he had Gregor Strasser killed. And that was in 1932. Or actually, no, I think he died in 34, but 32 is when Gregor left the NSDAP. But anyway, as a last final point, so I can actually have other people talk as well, the nationalization... go ahead. Oh, you're cutting out symmetry. What?
I think it's echoes. Just keep talking.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, good. The nationalization of quote-unquote private businesses and private property by the Nazis was almost 100% done in a racial manner. So the Night of Long Knives was a pretty famous event in history. It's one of the many times where the Nazis came in and decided based on race whether or not we're taking your property, your land, your house, your people, your whatever. They just decided to quote unquote nationalize all that. Now the interesting thing about this, and I truly believe one of the reasons why the Nazis war machine was not nearly as effective as nearly every other country on the planet, they decided to allow the businessman, quote unquote, and the business owner and the entrepreneur to continue their own free, quote unquote, free will under the system as long as they somewhat followed Hitler's plan. So as long as you played ball, then sure, you can do literally whatever you want. That's why we have 8 different versions of the Panzer that were made by Porsche or BMW or anything, and none of them were really effective, but they were all experimented because then the companies themselves could make a ton of money off of it, and they actually stepped away from that nationalization more so than literally every other country. America, with the Defense Production Act, was quote-unquote more socialist by the definitions that we've been given because they did not allow the private businessmen to work as they normally would. Everything contributed to the war effort. So if we're using those definitions, America in and of itself was more quote-unquote socialist than these Nazis were. So again, that's another thing that I just can't agree with more than anything else. So that's, again, just another info dump of historical context that hopefully gives you a little bit of info. On top of that, yeah, life was relatively good in Nazi Germany if you were of the race, as Dr. Doolittle has been quoting. If you weren't, you were absolutely ostracized. You were thrown out, thrown away, or sent to death camps, or forcibly conscripted and sent in awful the Wehrmacht's units, and just suffered greatly. But all in all, that's not very egalitarian, or it doesn't serve to equalize any social structures. It institutes and maintains a racial hierarchy that is inherently against socialist ideas. On top of the fact that, again, Hitler himself despised the cultural Bolshevism or cultural Marxism that was introduced. So I'll let you guys talk. I got to head out for just a minute. I will be back in a little bit.
Thanks, Chad.
Just to pick up the torch, I want to say that the 25 words weren't written simply by Hitler. They were written in the 1920s by Hitler and Dexler. And Dexler didn't like Hitler. There's a quote of him saying he calls him an absurd little man. and they together drafted the 25-point words in the 1920s. But the biggest thing about the story is to remind us fascists lie. That's an indication of fascism. Yes, the slogans there existed, but quickly when Hitler took power in the 1920s, half these things were abandoned. Yeah, they were on the platform, but they were never actualized, as Chad said, Hanging Chad said. So,
yep.
And I think
then with the Olympics too, they were saying like, "What are you talking about? We're not mistreating Jews," and they got off an image of fooling people to make them think that all this thing about hatred against the Jews, it wasn't really true.
Like, and sure that like some of the items in the 25 points seem pretty benign, right? Even reasonable. And like you don't even see that problem, but again, Nazis lie. You can't look at Nazis advertising. That's their propaganda. You look at what they do. You look at what they did, right? On November, like literally by 1923, inspired by Mussolini's success, Hitler and his brown shirt just took over Munich beer and half tried to capture like the local army. Like there's nothing about this that screamed socialism. There's nothing about this that screamed left-wing liberalism and democracy. Just it's not here. It's like, yes, this was written in the 1920s, but it quickly was no longer a part of the German party. Dexler was outed in 1921. Hitler killed socialists and communists. So, like,
Yeah.
And he literally gave power to the to companies all the time, and he literally took land from Jews and gave it to whites and said, no, white Jews do not have any day. It's nationalism. It's like Chad said, maintaining hierarchies. The 25 points are great, but to believe that 25 points are somehow in line with like left-wing socialism is literally Nazi propaganda working.
I would like to thanks Don. Actually, Don, I have one question. Do you think any of the Nazis' policies or beliefs or ideas, any of them, even one out of, like, let's say the thousands that they might have implemented, do you think any of them were, you could consider any of them to be on the left?
No.
Not a one.
Not one.
Okay.
There's social welfare policies, but none of them are left-leaning policies.
Okay.
Now, on the 25-point program, there are things that are left-wing, like nationalizing or whatever it might be, that you can look at communists and socialists. But those weren't done. Those were
But
simply
you don't
said,
think those were carried out?
And just moved on.
Yeah.
Those were not carried out.
Oh, yeah. And when you say those were not carried out, what do you use to verify that?
History. You can just kind of go through Wikipedia. You can go through different links. There's great books that I can post. I remember I have them in my closet from political science classes that talk about Nazi Germany and like their what they did and how their policies truly actualize. And there's nothing about it that it's like it's hard for me to say this, but like poli-sci 101, you learn this is what the right means. This is what the left means. Nazis are on the right. Wikipedia agrees it's on the right. All literature agrees that it's on the right. And when you look at historical context, that is the right in history. Now, it doesn't mean it's bad, right? This is fascism. It's an entirely different thing. But when it comes to the right and left spectrum, it is on the right. Just like Pinochet was on the left, and Pinochet did horrible things, right? That doesn't mean that it's any way bad or form. It's just the Nazis were on the right.
Okay, cool. And now I want to get Ernest in. Ernest is new to the Discord. Ernest, what's your take on all this? Do you think history is correctly putting the Nazis on the right side of the political spectrum? If you're there, Ernest. If not, feel free. Anyone who has a take to jump in.
It seems to me that it's just I just want to know why. Why the dispute to place this on the right or the left, and when it's done, to what end?
I can answer that, or I have a theory at least.
Yeah, fly at her.
Yeah. So again, like I said, with the first little bit of things that I've said, it's just a use and an attempt to revise history and, paint the Nazis as socialist because it is politically advantageous. Pretty much the entire world at this point agrees that the Nazis were the bad guys, whether or not you agree with their politics or anything like that. People think Nazi and think bad guy. So it makes a lot of sense when you have something that is pretty historically removed, I guess you could say at this point. It's not in the living zeitgeist of very many people, to all of a sudden equate whatever opposition group you have. In this case, again, it all stemmed from me talking about Crowder and Ben Shapiro and Dinesh D'Souza, who are like the pop Republicans, right? They're self-proclaimed rightists. Well, it makes sense to make the opposition to you bad guys. So you attempt to revise history and say,
I suppose
Nazis
it seems
were
like it would be.
Yeah,
I
trying to
suppose.
twist history.
I've heard that before. I think it's really in response to those calling. I think the reason. See, there is no
Holocaust
need. There is no.
happen.
There is. No, what?
Just
let
let Bruce finish, Nivik. Then you go.
There is no need. There is no need to have yet another thing to build up the argument against socialism or communism. We already have everything that communism did. We don't need Nazism at all to point to the problems with let them. Here's the reason why. I'll tell you the reason why. Because during Trump's presidency, everyone on the right were called Nazis all the time. So the people on the right decided to take the discussions of Nazism and turn it back and face it back at the people calling them Nazis. If you didn't call everyone fucking Nazis, then maybe they wouldn't get the history incorrect, in your opinion, and have these sort of difficult discussions around borderline stupid issues all the way around. And the only reason the discussion is even at hand is because people continue to call Trump supporters fucking Nazis. So these people that felt like they were voting for something that was a good idea to try and have America be a quality institution were called fucking Nazis and raked over the coals because they were called racist anti-Semites. Now they have to do this whole gymnastic routine of getting Nazism to be leftism versus rightism. And here we have all other sorts of problems occurring, and we're having discussions around Nazi on the right and left. And that's my 3 cents.
Baba Booey.
I think you can take it back. Take it back a lot further than that.
It does. It goes way back.
You can look at conservatives calling anybody in the left fucking commies for
that's
goddamn
great.
fucking
You can do
years,
that.
dude. Like,
Now,
and it's
Kill commies for mommy. That's what I always used to say.
I know. It's just the same bullshit.
Anything to the left of
back
them is
over
communism.
and over, man. It's you guys recognize it's all fucking nonsense, man. Like, if you're fucking calling people commies and Nazis and fucking all this kind of shit, I think you're
retarded. You're brain dead.
Now, here's the funny thing. To address your point, Bruce, there was an absolute uptick in, the misuse of the label Nazi. Like, everybody had that, what was it, the Charlottesville riot? The Unite the Right rally, that was a Nazi collection of people. They were literally screaming blood and soil, like Dr. Villain had said. They were carrying Nazi flags. That was a Nazi rally. So then that just exponentially increased the amount of people that were calling everything a Nazi when they shouldn't have. But
that started prior
well
to that
before that, yes, well before that, before Trump was even in the public zeitgeist as a political figure, people were trying to call the Nazis socialists, which is where the problem is. And that's just an attempt at historical revisionism. Now, I agree wholeheartedly. It's dumb as hell when you call everything you don't like a Nazi, and it's dumb as hell when you call everything you don't like a socialist or a communist or whatever. It's not accurate, and it's not historically accurate.
I'm on the right.
All we're trying to do, or all I'm trying to do in this instance, is clarify the terms and clarify the historicity that says, hey, this is not the right way to do it. And anyone who tries to make that like direct argument that Nazis are socialist seems to have an agenda that is questionable, whether it's reactionary or not, whatever. But it's not right. It is incorrect.
There's some flag waving Nazis on the right.
Even if 10 points of the Nazi points are at all similar to those in the socialist left, they have a point, and they will be validated in that.
Sure. I mean, yeah, fighting against
not to mention the fact
Holocaust deniers and fighting against a lot of those like odd claims that are really hard to actually prove tends to be a game of whack-a-mole. You could have 100 points, right? And you can hit 99 of them, but there's always one that you'll either miss or you just won't have time to disprove. So they'll latch onto that and create it and hold on to that as, hey, they didn't disprove everything. So then they'll always have a point, yes. But that doesn't mean they're correct.
I want to just mention why some people consider the Nazis to be, left. I think it's because I actually saw a post from Ben Shapiro explaining his reasoning. That was that his idea of left versus right is whether they're into big government or not. Governmental control. So people think of Stalin. He controlled his whole country, and Hitler also was controlling everything. So they're both on the left.
Yes, that's historical revisionism.
That is just historical revisionism. That is a misunderstanding of left and right. That's just saying authoritarianism is left-leaning.
If you redefine it, sure.
It's not a revisionism, and it's not a redefining.
It is
20 different. There's 20 different definitions of left and right. There's big government, little government. There's financial responsibility versus financial liberalism. There's, you name it. There's a bunch of different ones, and Ben Shapiro chooses to focus on on collectivism versus individualism, maybe.
Yeah.
Or big government versus little government. There's as you would say with your intersectionalism, there's a number of different ways you can look at someone on the left. Okay, someone on the left is potentially authoritarian, potentially big government, potentially modern monetary policy as opposed to Austrian, potentially, you name 8 different dimensions that they could be on the left, and many of them are orthogonal to one another. but there's a clustering of people that tend to agree on most things, and they vote as a block on the left, and there's a clustering of ideas that tend to vote as a block on the right.
So if that is your personal definition, and in this case we'll use Ben Shapiro's personal definition, I accept that. Sure, that is your personal definition. It is not one that is socially accepted or historically substantiated or really useful in any reasonable way. And then that leads the question, what exactly are you redefining it for, or changing the definition?
It's not redefining
the point.
So
if it's not historically substantiated, why do you think that he is redefining, or why? All right, let me not use that term. Why do you think he is defining Nazis as leftists today?
Who?
Ben Shapiro, in this case.
When was left?
Their platform is largely clustered with the other ideas on the left, such as the government taking control of education and healthcare, for example.
Right. So if we're using historical context and historical proofs, that is not true, because again, all of that stuff was in the Weimar Republic before it was Nazis. On top of that, it was mired in the fact that they never actually followed those policies. So it was again, as Dan said, a fascist lie, which again, fascist, I don't mean that
but
as
fascist,
a
again, that's another big
I'm using that
government.
As a accurate historical
So
definition.
if you're going to call Nazis fascists, right? What does fascist mean? Again, like we talked about before,
fascist, the right-wing authoritarian nationalist government.
Yes,
right. Fascism is Spain. Italian. It's the Italian, right? No, it's the Italian, and it means it's a bundle of sticks, and it means strong. It means that we're stronger together than we are individually, and it means all power is within the state, and it means, among other things, subjecting the individual good to the good of the whole.
Sure, if that is your definition,
that is the whole.
I understand,
and it's all socialist.
I understand. Like I love talking to you, Doolittle, because you say these things honestly, and it's great.
Yeah.
Because I 100% believe that you believe that, and that's why we can have good conversations.
You don't think that's what fascist means?
It is not. Fascism is a form of far-right authoritarian ultranationalism. Now, we didn't get to a point to actually describe ultranationalism and nationalism and all these.
What do you think? You just literally translate the word to English. What do you think it means?
Ultranationalism?
No, fascism.
Yeah, it goes back way further. This idea, the concept that Doolittle's talking about, the concept, and Chad, you're talking about a way that concept is played out in a certain time period. The Lincoln Memorial in Washington D.C., the columns of his chair that he's sitting in is fasces, and the fasces goes like back to Roman times, if not even further. It's that symbol of the bound sticks with an axe on top, and that's what Doolittle's talking about, like the ability for people to stand together and do more than they can alone together. But
that's beautiful. It is not a socialist tenet. It is a philosophy at best
They were
Go ahead, Symmetry.
Fascism as that.
Oh, sorry, Dan.
Fascism, okay, I'm just going to say that is a form of socially conservative, hierarchical, centralized power that puts national identity over the individual. That's fascism.
Yeah.
During Charlottesville, you saw Nazis and Confederacy flags.
Yeah, you did. Symmetry, what were you saying as well?
I think it might have been an echo.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it puts the national identity above the individual, right?
Yeah. National identity above the individual, correct.
Nationalism.
Guys, I put a link to the right versus left political spectrum in the voice text if you want to see it. And it goes through the history. It's a Wikipedia page. It goes through the history of left and right and how it's used.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, I mean, at this point, Pangburn, are you still here?
far right politics includes neo-fascist, neo-Nazism, third position alt-right, racial supremacism ideologies. Right? This is just in the far right politics tab on Wikipedia.
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm
just.
You
post the link. Where's the link at?
Equality, social
voice
hierarchy.
text one.
But you got to realize that if it's a
Where's the link?
Wikipedia argument, that Wikipedia is a far left organization, right?
Would you say that they're part of the cultural Marxists that are controlling everything?
The academic elite that control the media and the information.
Wikipedia is 100% a far left organization.
Yeah, I guess that is a conversation for another.
Okay, let me open the switch.
You're citing a far left organization to define the far left.
I'm not bringing it.
I might as well say Fox News.
I can't believe this is happening.
I mean, yeah, there's not really anything you can go to when it starts getting into conspiratorial territory. I mean,
it's not conspiratorial. I mean, Wikipedia. I mean, it's the fucking definition of the site.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm gonna do right now? I'm just gonna click on the link on the little.
Just go find the sources.
Yeah. You get the real source, and then we're gonna talk about it.
So I mean, you just argue about the source, and the source is whatever other people say it is.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine.
I guess.
And it's whatever's the popular definition.
But let's go back to the thing that we all agreed on. We agreed that the right is about maintaining hierarchies. We agreed that the right is about stopping strong progressive changes.
We didn't agree that the right is about maintaining hierarchies.
Isn't that one of the things that we wrote down?
To conserve a functioning society for the future. Okay. Maintaining the social hierarchies is in the accepted definition that we have up on the live stream right now.
I just have a question. Do we have anything to add to our beautiful short list after this conversation?
I think we can just put Nazism is on the right. No,
hold on a second. No, Wikipedia. No, I'm just gonna play by your rules here. Political, just reading off the Wikipedia argument. Okay, Wikipedia, going with 0 rules. Wikipedia, I'm reading off the Wikipedia.
Let's do it.
Political scientists and other advocates regard the left as including anarchists, communists, socialists, democratic socialists, social democrats, left libertarians, progressive social liberals, movements for racial equality and trade unionism. Political science and other analysts regard the right as including conservatives, right libertarians, neoconservatives, imperialists, monarchists, fascists, reactionaries, and traditionalists. So, notably, Nazis are absent from the left.
They're fascists. What are you talking about?
They're fascists.
Are you saying
deny that
Nazis weren't
fascists? Sorry, Jinx, you owe me double sodas.
Hell yeah, dude.
Am I arguing that Nazis are not fascists? I guess Wikipedia also says that Adolf Hitler's a fascist.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, man, this is not.
But Okay. Well, there you go. Wikipedia says it, so it must be true.
Must be true. That's how
Dude,
it works.
I love you.
But what
That's
I gotta say, like, if you're on the left or right, and you think, like, all of a sudden because like Hitler was on the right, that means something about your position, or if you know that Stalin's on the left, that means something about your position.
Oh yeah,
it means fuck all. It has nothing to do with anything.
No, I don't even identify Hitler
If
as
Hitler
as
was
a
for
Nazi.
public education and universal health care, that was something he really fought for.
Fucking-
I
he
would
was fucking
proudly
brilliant,
back
wasn't he?
Hitler up right now.
Yeah.
I would
He
back
was
Hitler up right
for
now.
that.
He
was
wasn't
actually-
because he didn't do it.
Yeah, if he was
killed the
actually
guy
for
that
that,
was.
He actually did do public education.
No,
Yeah,
he didn't. He quite
From
literally
a
just
young
piggybacked off
age,
of
yeah, he
Bismarck.
had his Hitler youth, yeah.
I said Bismarck. Remember, he literally piggybacked off of Bismarck's policies.
Yeah,
But
just-
okay.
Yeah.
If in that idea,
Einstein
minus
fucking
the
piggybacked
nationalism,
off of Newton, he didn't have any of his own ideas either.
minus the nationalism, I 100 trillion% back up the idea of universal healthcare and of public education.
Minus the
100%.
nationalism.
Yes.
Minus the nationalism and minus the fascism
I
and
will-
minus the ethnocentrism and minus the social conservatism.
I will second that.
I will stand proudly behind that.
But
Well,
universal.
Nazis also invented the first tape recorder too. Let's not forget how important that is, guys.
I don't know what young life would have been like without my old tape recorder.
I can't imagine like running without a tape recorder.
I gotta get my Walkman out, man.
Imagine there's no heaven.
And then what type of form of universal schooling
Universal what?
would you support? I mean,
What type of universal schooling do I support?
sorry, I just cut off. I asked what type of universal schooling do you support? Like what form?
Well, I want to expand the form that we currently have of public education to ensure that a high school degree and at least an associate's, I would even go as far as a BA, is something that is given to those who want it, right? And have a society and a structure to promote people's success through it. The same way we changed that, from 9th grade, 10th, 11th, and 12th, it became, the whole social movement to add that to the public education system. Just like K through 12 at one point, K through 6 was one of them. And also, I believe in preschool, but that is very important for modern day life. And that's the one I just want to expand on that same idea.
Not only that, imagine if you're like a sophomore and you say the next year what I really want to do is go to vocational school. Yeah, we should supply that as well. Go to vocational school, learn how to be a plumber.
That's probably more important than BA in business administration.
Could quite possibly be.
There would be a lot of people that go to that, and that would be fucking awesome, right? Let's just get them out there and let's have people ready to go. They hit the ground running in life.
Don said it perfectly. I don't think I can disagree.
What about now? Maybe to enter a different topic, but what about getting rid of bachelor's degrees in total?
I wouldn't get rid of them. I would just continue calling it a bachelor's degree, just like I have a regent's degree from my high school, right? I have a high school degree. I'm saying what I'm suggesting. I mean, it's obviously not a popular opinion, but maybe we should get rid of bachelor's degrees and just go to master's degrees. Maybe have them a little longer. Well, currently in our society, I think that it shouldn't be mandatory. It should definitely have government programs to help you through master's program. Hopefully, universities kind of do at the moment really help you out with jobs after you get a BA. And so long as that system is functioning, I see no reason to expand it. If in the future at any time it would happen to be that master's programs are necessary to function a society, to build strong middle class, to build independence and land ownership where you can buy a house and invest in the future, then I will totally be for expanding our education systems to include masters.
People who get masters, you tend to get your BA, you get a job, and then you come back, and the masters is not a you're typically not spending the same amount of time every day. You're only focused on this one thing, and you just really have to focus on your thesis. So you're spending this 2 years to come up with an idea for your actual thesis, and that's your master's thesis. I mean, it's sort of different because people have real jobs all the time while they're still working masters.
Right.
Down, I didn't mean.
Oh,
go ahead, Amy.
My field, I was a physical therapist, and my field moved towards from some programs were a bachelor's degree, some were a master's, and now they're a doctorate program. And the reason I think that they moved the profession as a whole to that is because we were wanting direct access to the patients, meaning that they didn't need a doctor's order to come and get physical therapy, that they could just... it is terrible because now you have 2 more years just so that our profession can get some clout and get more patients. However, I'll tell you that I worked in nursing homes and my patients would ask what I wanted to be when I grow up because they saw me as someone who walks old people, right? I mean, you do not need 6 years of college. I mean, yes, there's the background. We all know that any kind of degree you get, there's a lot of worthless information that you have to learn that have nothing to do with your job. And so adding more years to college, which, I mean, I can't be for that, but I just thought it was interesting to speak of like my profession. And, if you wanted to just be a nursing home physical therapist, you have to get a doctorate today, I believe. I don't know if that's the case in every state per se, but that's a bit much.
I know in New York, it's if you want to have your own practice and license, but so long as you're going to work under someone else, you don't need to.
Yeah.
Well, the schools though are only offering, the school that I went to, I think is now a doctorate program. So it's a matter of I think maybe that's what it is the schools are moving to that. So there may be a point where you don't have much choice because there's no school program. And the schools probably have their own reasons for moving towards the DPT because they get you for 2 more years of your tuition, and I just think it's a racket, the whole education industry. And I'm all for revamping it as well, but.
Yeah. Donna, that's what I was suggesting I was saying abolishing bachelors. I don't mean, I wasn't referring to the government paying for it. I meant to say that we should do away with it. Like, if you're going for, I have a problem with the need for getting a bachelor's in mathematics in order to become a physical therapist. And in order to get a master's in physical therapy, for example, you can take a bachelor's in engineering, but if you don't have a BA, then they're not going to accept you into their program. I think it's just silly. It's ridiculous.
Is that really? Because I know, for example, I have a friend who got an engineering degree, and then for his master's, he did something medical related, and now he designs products for medical use, right? So I could think the same thing would be true with physical therapy. I'm not really sure how that works, what the prerequisites are, but even in law, you can have philosophy, you can have a bio degree and go into law. Or if you want to do bioethics, so you can get a psychology degree and go into law. So there's
actually a lot of people.
Masters is a very important thing. It gives a lot of people that flexibility between a doctorate program and their BA to hone in on something specific, to kind of catch a niche. So I don't actually think of my best friend who works in Albany. He has a master's degree in public policy. He doesn't have a doctorate, right? And it's there because he only needed enough analysis to analyze, understand, and research public policy,
So much
but not
for
to
breaking down the hierarchy and the social hierarchy, huh? It's all about getting that next degree, so you have that. Fucking status on the hierarchy, isn't it?
But that's I would consider that I would argue that is
fucking being blind yourself is what that's being called.
That degree represents a certain amount of knowledge, and that's the whole problem. I mean,
it gives you an initial state on the hierarchy that you're talking about. Yep. How about just learn? How about just learn what you want to learn? How about just learn what you want to learn and get good at it and provide value to people?
I think we should run a quick poll.
Doctor, how do you prove what you've learned to other people? So
I started out washing dishes, and then somebody said, "Hey, why don't you chop these peppers?" And I chopped the peppers, and they're like, "You're pretty good at chopping the peppers. Why don't you make the whole fucking salad next time?" And then I made the whole salad, and they were like, "You know what? I'm going to teach you how to make beef Philly Colorado beef," and I made that, and now I was the fucking prep cook for the rest of the summer.
It used to be like that.
Anyway,
my point is, Doctor, is like you still have something that represents that says, hey, I have this specific amount of experience. Whether you're saying I worked at this restaurant and moved from this point to this point, or you come in and say I have a degree for this. It's designed to just say that, hey, I have this amount of information. Would you like to maintain that job? That's structure that you can jump into the hierarchy wherever you belong based on a certification from a third party?
So I've
met so many people in the fields of studies that I'm interested in, like psychology and philosophy, that have master's degrees or PhDs, and they're working at a job in that field for $20 an hour. And the people that I see successful, that are successful and aren't living in poverty after they've spent all that money to get those things, have written a successful business or a book, or they've started their own private successful business. And so that says to me, like what Doolittle was saying, just learn the shit on your own and write that book or start that business. Like to me, the college degree outside of a STEM certification, like engineering or a professional degree that you have to practice